So first we're going to take our macrame cord and we're going to start measuring. You need a pair of scissors. We're going to take our tape measure, and this is a metre long tape measure. First thing we're going to do is measure 1.5 metres of macrame. .5, and then you can just set that piece aside. And next we're going to cut 5 sections, each measuring 75 centimetres in length. So now we're going to take our 150 centimetre working cord and we're going to create a little loop circle with it, like that. So we've got a little endy piece sticking out here, and then we've got the rest of our working cord coming out on this end. We've got a loop and we've got 2 overlapping sections here. Now what we're going to do is take one of our 75 centimetre sections, and we're going to hold the 2 ends together and just run your fingers up the cord until you've got a loop here at the top. Then what we're going to do is create a lark's head knot around this overlapping section here. I'm just going to take it off the cork round so that you can see what I'm doing. So you've got the overlapping section here, so you're going to hold that together like this, and then you're going to pass this section over the top, and then you'll create a loop on one side. You're going to pass your 2 end pieces through the loop, and then you're going to pull nice and tight. And this here is what's called a lark's head knot. So you can jig it about a little bit so it's nice and tight, like so. We're going to take our next 75 centimetre piece section and do the exact same thing. Make sure it's bent in half. Take it through the loop over the overlapped section. Then you've got a loop here, just pass it through and pull like this. And you're going to continue to do that with the other 3 75 centimetre piece sections. So now we have 5 lark's head knots. We've got our working cord here, and we're going to take the short section of our working cord and we're just going to gently pull on it. And all of our lark's head knots will turn into a little circle, like so. So we've got our 5 lark's head knots. We've got our working cord here, the short section and the long section. We're going to ignore this short section now and pretend that it just doesn't exist. And what I do at this point is make sure all my knots are nice and tight, or as tight as I can get them. And then I'm going to flip everything over, and we're going to be working on this side. So now what you want to do is take your cork round, place the macrame on top, and this is where your little T-pins come in handy. So I usually just poke one through the middle, and that'll help it not slip off as we're working. It just makes everything a bit tighter. Usually pop another one just through one side. Right, so we're going to ignore this little short piece. I'm not going to do anything with that until the end of our coaster now, so just try and pretend it's not there. Now we've got our long working cord here, and then we've got all our strands that are coming out of our lark's head knots. And we're going to work on these one by one. So what we're going to do is take our working cord and we're going to pass it over the top of our first strand, like this. And then using our first strand, we're going to create what's called a double hitch knot. So to do this, you've got your working cord here, you've got your first strand here, and we're going to create a figure 4 shape, passing the strand over the top of the working cord. So if you can see, you've got your strand going underneath the working cord over, strands going like this, and then going over the top of your working cord. Then you're going to take the end of the strand and pass that through this loop here that we've created. And then you're going to pull it nice and tight, like so. Then we're going to do the exact same thing again, which is why it's called a double hitch knot. And then pull it nice and tight, which is why it's great to have these T-pins in, like so. So now we've got this strand and we can just pop that to the side, and we've still got our working cord here. So again, I'm going to just turn my piece of cork around so it's easier. Then again, we've got our second strand, our working cord. We're going to pass the working cord over the top of the second strand and do another double hitch knot. So figure 4 over the top, pass the end through and pull. Now you don't want to pull like so tight, otherwise your coaster's going to start to make this shape. So pull gently and just, you can kind of press this down like this. This is basically the premise for the entire coaster, but we will soon be adding more macrame. But for the time being, you're just going to continue to do this until you get back round to your little short piece. Okay, so now, as you can see, I'm back at this short piece. So what we're going to do at this point is we're going to add another section of macrame, because if you can see here, there's a little bit of a gap between this last double hitch knot and the first double hitch knot that we made. And so we want to bulk out the coaster a little bit, so that we're not starting over here and then we've got weird gaps. So you're gonna take your macrame cord again and measure a section approximately 60 centimeters. So now I'm gonna take the 60 centimeter piece, fold it in half like we did with our 75 centimeter pieces, and I'm going to create another lark's head knot. This time, instead of going over the top, I'm going to go underneath, just because if you remember, we flipped the whole thing round, so we want to have the same pattern here. And then we're just going to push that up next to our last double hitch knot. And as you can see here, that's just filled in that gap for us, which is great. I'm going to move my short piece out of the way again, and then I'm going to do exactly what we were just doing. So working cord over the top of the first strand and a double hitch knot. So as you can see again, we've got another larger gap, so we want to fill that in again with another piece of macrame. So we're going to use another 60 centimetre piece of macrame and do the same thing we did over here, lark's head knot, and add it on. Okay, so we've just added that next lark's head knot on, and as you can see, there is still quite a gap in between your working cord and the next strand that we're going to be working with. So I'm actually going to cut another 60 centimetre piece and add that on here. You'll notice for this next row that we're working on, you will get quite a lot of these gaps, and you can fill them in with 60 centimetre length pieces. And once you've done that for this next row, you'll notice less and less that you'll have these gaps. And as we keep building up the rows, if you do come across a gap, you won't have to add quite as much macrame onto it, because the further we get out, the shorter these strands are going to get. So I would say, rule of thumb, this second row that we're going to be working on here, I guess it looks like the third row there, this second row we're working on here, you can add on 60 centimetre pieces if you've got any gaps. The third one, take 5 centimetres off that, so add 55 centimetres. The fourth one, 50 centimetres, and so on. But like I said, as we start working up our rows, we won't need as much extra macrame. And now you can see that this strand and the working cord are nice and close together. So we don't have to add any more yet. So I'm going to do the next double hitch. Like so. And then we've got a little gap, so I'm going to add another 60 centimetre piece. So like I say, for this second or third row that we're doing, you will want to add quite a few extra pieces. And then as we get further around our coaster, you'll have to add less and less. Okay, so now we are back at the beginning. We're back at our little short piece. So again, we're going to just take that out of the way. And so on this whole row, I pretty much end up doing, I did the 2 lark's head knots to start, then double hitch, added a lark's head, double hitch, added a lark's head, double hitch, added a lark's head, all the way around until I got to about here. And then this last set of 2 strands, I didn't have to add the lark's head knot because I didn't have a big gap at all. So now we're going to continue to go around. So here, as you can see, we don't have any kind of gap. So working cord over the top, work on our first strand doing a double hitch knot. So if you notice your coaster starting to wobble a little bit, you can always add another couple of pins just to keep it more in place, like so. Okay, so now I'm back at my short piece again. Now as you go round, your strands are going to be getting shorter and shorter, so if you're a bit confused on which is your short piece, you can sort of notice that that's the one coming all the way from underneath here. You could also cut it a little bit shorter, but you'll come into the same issue later when all the strands are the same length, so just remember to have a little sneaky peek. It's the one that's coming from right underneath here. So on that entire row, I didn't have to add any extra macrame because we added so much on the second row that we did. If you did have any little gaps and you wanted to fill them in, then that's absolutely fine. I just didn't happen to come across any. So I am going to carry on and do the next row, but if you can notice here, I've got a little bit of a gap in between both of my rows, and this will just be where I haven't pulled tight enough on my double hitch knots. So to solve that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my working cord and just pull very gently. And can you see how it kind of tightens it? You don't want to pull too hard because, again, like I say, it'll start to create more of a bowl shape. If you pull it a little bit and then use your fingers to just flatten it down, that will help to, you see how that's tightened those two rows together. So get rid of your little short piece and carry on going around the next row. So I'm now back at the beginning. Here's our little short piece again. And for that last row, I only had to add about 3 extra pieces when I saw little gaps coming along. So far, this coaster is about 10.5 to 11 centimeters. So if you wanted to, you could stop here and have a coaster this size. I'm going to do one more row because I like to use my coasters for candles as well as mugs, and a lot of my candles are a bit bigger. Okay, so I've just done that last row and I'm now back at the beginning again. So what I'm going to do now is just take out these T-pins, and you can save those for another macrame project. So I'm going to take my coaster off the cork round like this. So now what I need to do is tie up this last section of working cord so that it doesn't all unravel. So to do that, I flip the whole thing upside down. So we've got the start of our working cord here and we've got the end of our working cord here. This is what the grip in your kit is for. So I'm going to take my grip, and what we're going to do is just pull this working cord, this last section of working cord, through a couple of loops and then back out again, so it's going to become part of our fringe down here. So to do that, take your grip, pop it inside, pop the macrame inside like that, and then have a little look, and you can see here I'm going to go through this loop and this loop and come back out again here. So for the first loop, pull through, and then I'm going to do this second loop, and pull through like this. So that just finishes off our coaster. So we've taken it through one loop and through two loops. So this cord here, which we've been using as our guide the whole time, we can just cut that down and that will not unravel. Then you can flip your coaster back over like this and start cutting the fringe. So what I tend to do is look for the shortest piece and I'll follow that round. Like this, and I can see here this one is very long. So you can see here that it's not exactly perfect, but before I carry on cutting, I'm going to take the wooden comb and I'm going to begin to brush out the fringe, and then we can finish off cutting the circle. Okay, so once you've brushed out the tassels, you can now see where we need to cut more. And you can have your tassels as long or as short as you like. Here I've got quite a short one, so I'm gonna base everything off of that one. Okie dokie, so that's probably not 100% perfect, but that's fine. So that is our completed coaster.